Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. And before we go any further, I need you to hear this. There are 4 psychological buttons that quietly shape a woman's emotional experience around a man, and most men never even notice them. What's haunting is that these buttons don't work because of tricks, games, or manipulation. They work because they tap into the deeper layers of how connection forms in the female mind. And if you don't understand them, you'll keep finding yourself in the same patterns. Women losing interest, pulling back, or never feeling the level of attachment you secretly hoped for. If you want more mind-opening content like this, make sure you subscribe and like the video so you never miss the insights you were never supposed to know. Now, let me ask you something that might sting a little. Have you ever met a woman who seemed genuinely drawn to you? Her eyes softened, her voice changed, her energy leaned toward you, even though you weren't trying to impress her. And then another woman acted cold, unimpressed, even distant, despite you giving her more attention than you gave the first one. It's not random. Women respond emotionally based on cues buried in instinct, memory, and perception. You think it's about looks, status, or smooth words, but connection lives somewhere deeper. Women feel what you activate in them long before they analyze who you are. There's something powerful about the man who knows how to stand in his emotional center, not a man who acts unbothered, but a man who isn't pulled around by the moment. Women watch for this without even realizing they're watching. They notice how your voice shifts when you're nervous, whether your presence stabilizes or destabilizes a room, whether your attention feels generous or hungry. The moment she senses she's the one determining your emotional weather, she feels something inside her shut down, not because she's judging you, but because her body is wired to trust men who are anchored, not men who drift. And here's the truth most men never learn. Emotional attraction is not built by chasing a woman's approval. It's built by signaling, through your tone, your boundaries, your energy, that you don't need approval to be whole, that you're choosing her, not chasing her. This subtle shift alone creates a kind of emotional gravity she can't ignore. It makes her curious, drawn in, invested. She feels something she can't fully explain, and it begins to pull her closer. Women fall for what they feel around you, not what you say to them. Let's dive into the first button, and this one is subtle, but dangerously powerful if you don't use it correctly. I call it the emotional contrast button. Imagine this. A woman is around you, and you're consistent, calm, and attentive. But every now and then, you introduce a moment of mystery, unpredictability, or depth that makes her heart skip. Not chaos, not drama, just a hint that there's more beneath the surface than she sees. Think of it like a song with pauses and crescendos. If it's all monotone, it becomes background noise. But if you know where to add tension, where to soften, where to disappear for a moment, she starts noticing you. She starts thinking about you when you're not there. She starts longing for the next moment that only you can create. Most men get this backwards. They either overexpose themselves or create drama, and she recoils. You don't need to chase attention. You need to craft emotional tension that she can't resist engaging with. Next is the validation switch, and this one is going to make some men uncomfortable. Women are wired to notice who genuinely sees them versus who's just performing interest. When you notice the small things, how her eyes light up when she talks about something she loves, the quiet insecurities she hides, the patterns she never admits, she begins to feel seen in a way she rarely does. But here's the catch. This isn't flattery. You're not complimenting her to make her like you. You're showing her that you understand her world, that you recognize her reality. It makes her feel emotionally safe with you, and when safety mixes with intrigue, desire grows. Emotional addiction begins here, without her even realizing it. The third button is the challenge magnet. This isn't about being combative or arrogant. It's about creating subtle friction that excites her mind and emotions. A woman feels addicted when she knows she can't predict you fully, when she's invited to solve the puzzle you present. This doesn't mean playing games. It means living authentically, being aligned with your values, and letting her see that her effort is meaningful in your world. Challenge in the right proportion activates deep psychological reward pathways in her brain. It's why she texts back faster when she's genuinely curious about you, why she laughs harder, why she can't stop thinking about interactions with you. Without it, relationships flatten, attraction fades, and emotional dependency never develops. Finally, the last button, the security anchor, is where many men fail, even when they're hitting all the others. She wants the thrill, the mystery, the challenge. But underneath all of that, she craves the subtle energy that says, I'm here, I'm steady, you can lean on me, and you don't have to perform to earn it. Women fall emotionally for men who balance intensity with stability. Hit all 4 of these buttons, and the effect is magnetic, almost addictive. She's drawn in, invested, and feels a gravity she can't name. Now that you understand the buttons, let's explore how they interact. Because triggering one in isolation isn't enough. Women aren't predictable creatures of habit. Their minds respond to patterns, contrasts, and emotional rhythms. The real power lies in layering these buttons so her subconscious starts associating you with an emotional experience she can't replicate anywhere else. For example, you combine the emotional contrast with the security anchor. One moment you're mysterious, intriguing, or slightly unavailable. The next, you provide stability, a grounded presence she can rely on. Her brain registers this as a rare emotional balance, intensity plus safety, and it creates what psychologists call emotional addiction. She starts seeking your attention almost compulsively because her mind has learned that interacting with you triggers both excitement and comfort. It's not manipulation, it's chemistry, amplified by your awareness of these levers. Here's what most men miss. It's not about constant attention. In fact, overexposure is the fastest way to kill emotional attachment. Women lose interest when the emotional highs flatten, when predictability replaces intrigue, and when attention feels expected rather than earned. The man who truly understands female psychology leverages absence as much as presence. He knows when to lean in with warmth and when to step back to create longing. That space isn't coldness, it's intentional. It allows her mind to wander, to replay interactions, to analyze your behaviors, and most importantly, to feel emotionally pulled toward you without realizing why. The validation switch becomes most potent when layered with subtle challenge. When she feels truly seen, yet recognizes you are selective with your attention, she experiences a paradoxical mix of safety and desire. Her mind starts forming narratives about you that elevate your value far beyond what you consciously project. Suddenly, she's not just attracted, she's emotionally invested. She remembers the way you listened, how you recognized something in her that no one else does, and then pairs that memory with the subtle challenge of earning your approval or curiosity. That combination is irresistible because it mirrors the deep psychological structures of attachment, reward, and reward anticipation. Remember, these buttons are not tricks. They're psychological truths, rooted in how women's emotional brains process connection, trust, and desire. Men who ignore them struggle with inconsistency, frustration, and relationships that feel flat or unsatisfying. Those who understand them see women respond naturally, without coercion or manipulation, creating a magnetic presence that feels effortless yet deeply compelling. Emotional addiction isn't about control. It's about creating a psychological environment where she feels compelled to invest herself in you emotionally, to seek your presence, and to crave the unique energy only you provide. Now let's talk about the subtle art of timing, because knowing the buttons isn't enough if you don't know when to activate them. Women's emotional engagement follows a rhythm, often dictated by their own life stresses, moods, and subconscious assessments of you. The man who becomes addictive understands that every interaction isn't just about what he does, but when he does it. For example, if you trigger the emotional contrast at a time when she's stressed or vulnerable, the effect is magnified. A small moment of intrigue can break through her mental fog and leave her replaying your interaction long after it ends. But if you overuse these triggers or hit them at the wrong moment, the effect backfires. She feels confused, frustrated, or even drained. Timing is psychological precision. It's reading the room, her energy, and your own presence, and delivering the right button at the exact emotional inflection point. The challenge here is subtlety. It's not about overthinking or planning like a strategist, it's about presence. Women feel when you're tuned into them, when you're observing rather than reacting. Presence allows you to layer the buttons organically. A casual comment can validate her without seeming calculated. A small act of attentiveness can challenge her in a way that feels effortless. She doesn't consciously analyze these triggers. Her mind simply responds. That's the secret. The addictive effect works below her awareness, which makes it psychologically irresistible. Let's examine a practical example. Suppose she shares a personal frustration. Most men respond with either a generic "I understand" or rush in with advice. Neither of these moves activates a button. The man who understands female psychology listens, notices a subtle emotional cue, and responds in a way that validates her while remaining slightly unpredictable. Maybe he offers a different perspective or a teasing observation that only he could make. That combination of validation and intrigue lights up the reward circuits in her brain. It triggers dopamine, oxytocin, and subtle forms of emotional attachment, all without her realizing she's being influenced. Over time, these interactions compound. She starts to feel that only you get her in this specific way, and her mind begins to crave more moments like this. Here's the part most men overlook. It's not just about making her feel good. It's about creating a dynamic where her emotional engagement grows because it's earned, not handed out. Emotional addiction doesn't come from relentless attention or empty charm. It comes from your ability to blend validation, challenge, contrast, and security into a rhythm that naturally pulls her in. Once mastered, women don't just like being around you. They start needing the unique energy only you provide.
Now let's uncover the final layer, the psychological depth that makes all four buttons truly irresistible. Most men stop at surface-level attraction, a good laugh, a compliment, or physical chemistry. But emotional addiction is forged in the layers beneath, where the brain associates you with experiences and feelings she can't replicate anywhere else. This is where subtlety becomes your secret weapon. It's about creating what I call the emotional signature, a combination of energy, presence, and interaction style that imprints in her mind. Once that signature exists, she doesn't just enjoy your company, she starts craving it. Think of it like music. A song isn't powerful because of one chord or one beat. It's the pattern, the rhythm, the way tension resolves into release. Women experience men the same way. When you activate contrast, validation, challenge, and security strategically, her brain starts to form a memory of how you make her feel, not just what you do. Over time, she begins to anticipate those moments. Her mind creates small dopamine spikes in expectation of your presence. She doesn't know she's addicted. She just feels it as a pull, a curiosity, a magnetic need to be around you. And the fascinating part? It's self-reinforcing. The more she experiences your emotional signature, the stronger the pull becomes, and the more invested she grows without consciously deciding to. Here's the kicker that most men never understand. Emotional addiction isn't about controlling her actions. It's about cultivating an experience she subconsciously wants. You're not manipulating her. You're offering a dynamic that her brain interprets as rare and valuable. The moment she realizes she can't stop thinking about you, it's not because you chased her. It's because you created a rhythm she can't resist. That is power. That is psychological leverage grounded in authenticity, not deception. And there's one final nuance that separates the men who succeed from the men who fail. Women are naturally attuned to energy. They sense when someone is self-contained, confident, and emotionally calibrated versus someone who is desperate, reactive, or insecure. If your buttons are activated in a shaky or performative way, she disengages. But if you anchor your energy, your emotional signature becomes undeniable. You are no longer just a man she likes. You are a man she feels she needs in her emotional ecosystem, someone who excites her, challenges her, and stabilizes her all at once. Once you grasp this, everything changes. You stop wondering why women come and go. You stop chasing validation. Instead, you understand the invisible architecture of emotional attachment, and you become the man who naturally elicits desire, intrigue, and emotional dependence in a way that feels effortless, yet is profoundly intentional. Now, let's bring it all together, because knowing the buttons is one thing, but living them consistently is where transformation happens. You've learned the emotional contrast, the validation switch, the challenge magnet, and the security anchor. You know how to layer them, time them, and create your emotional signature. But the ultimate power lies in consistency without predictability. Women don't fall for sporadic moments. They fall for patterns that feel alive, authentic, and captivating. The man who understands this doesn't need to force attention or chase affection. He creates an emotional ecosystem where she naturally wants to stay, think, and invest. Think about this. Every interaction you have with her is an opportunity to reinforce the buttons, consciously or unconsciously. A glance, a word, a pause, they all carry weight. When done intentionally, your presence becomes addictive not because you're doing something flashy, but because you trigger the emotional architecture she can't resist. Every conversation becomes a thread that pulls her closer. Every interaction is a reminder of the energy only you provide. She doesn't analyze it logically and she doesn't question it consciously, but her body remembers. Her mind craves it. Her heart begins to tie itself to it. Here's a truth that most men never hear. Emotional addiction doesn't require control, manipulation, or endless attention. It requires self-mastery. Women respond most to men who are anchored, self-contained, and emotionally deliberate. You don't need to perform or prove anything. You need to exist in a way that naturally activates the 4 buttons. That is the essence of influence, not in forcing desire, but in cultivating it within her subconscious experience. And when all of these elements align, the timing, the contrast, the validation, the challenge, and the stability, you become unforgettable. She can't ignore the pull she feels toward you, and her brain starts forming associations that deepen over time. Attraction evolves into emotional dependence, curiosity evolves into investment, and connection evolves into a magnetic bond that feels almost inescapable. This is the rare power that separates men who are noticed from men who are unforgettable. It's not about tricks, games, or superficial charm. It's about understanding the psychology of women, harnessing your own emotional presence, and intentionally activating the buttons that create genuine attachment. Once you master this, you step into a new reality. Women are drawn to you naturally, deeply, and consistently. And the most remarkable part? You do this while remaining true to yourself, grounded, and in control of your own emotional world. The truth is simple, but profound. Mastery over emotional attraction is not optional. It's a skill. And when you wield it correctly, you become the man who women can't stop thinking about, can't resist being around, and can't help but emotionally invest in.